Here you can see an overview of the new features and functions that are coming for the December 2024 release of the original Casambi app. New users of the app will be presented with the new Casambi theme upon opening the app for the first time. You can always change back to the old theme if you wish to. There will be a pair option. When you're identifying luminaires from nearby devices tab, you'll have the option to pair it to the network you're currently connected to straight away. There's a prompt to turn on control hierarchy when you're first editing a sensor for the first time, because control hierarchy needs to be enabled to use sensors and is off by default. There's a new push button control scene options that have got function and step parameters added, so you can actually trigger a scene not to just toggle on and off, but you can define a different function and steps for when you're toggling or when you're pushing and holding the button. There's an additional fade time for smart switching, so that's been separated from the fade time for switch dimming. It was all part of one function previously. And for the new Casambi theme, there's a new view for the nearby devices and change networks screen. There's filters that you can apply. For most of these to work properly, you need to update the firmware to version 45, and the latest app version will be 3.16.0. Quickly going through then one by one. When you're identifying a device from nearby devices view, you can also be prompted to pair the device if you want to pair it straight away. Previously you had to stop the identification and go back and select the device again to add it to your network, but now you can actually add it to the network straight away. When you first go to edit your first sensor that's paired to your network, you'll be prompted to enable control hierarchy if you haven't already done it. It only happens once when you're first trying to edit the very first sensor that you're trying to program. So you can pair all your sensors to the network, no problem. You can create your scenes, but when you then try to configure a sensor to trigger a scene, if it's the first one you're configuring and control hierarchy isn't on, you'll be prompted to activate the control hierarchy. The new push button options in the control scene option enable you to change the function of the push button should you want to. By default, control scene acts as it would do previously, toggle on and off. So when you push once, it turn the scene on, push again, it will turn it off, and pushing and holding will dim up and down. But you can change the behavior of the switch so that it'll only switch on or it'll only switch off, or it's just for dimming up and down. This is more primarily for switches that only have options to do up and down function. There's the other push button option, which is control function, which is specifically for those switches, but those switches then need a scene triggered separately by another switch. Whereas if you apply this control scene function to that type of switch with just an up or down option, you can define then what scene is specifically going to be affected without needing to activate it from another switch. And the steps function, then depending on what option you choose, you get different options available, and every time you do a short push of the button, it'll either step up or step down depending on what you've configured based on those step parameters. In the control options, you used to just have fade time for switch dimming, which had a limited time functions. Now what we've actually done is remove the smart switching option from that, because there's often a different time required if you're switching on and off from a mains switch, which is the smart switching, compared to if you're just dimming from a Casambi enabled switch within the app. So now you've got those split out into two separate functions, which are the bottom one. So fade time for switch dimming is from a Casambi enabled switch that's paired to a network when you're pushing and holding, how long it takes to fade up and down. And fade time for smart switching is if you're powering on and off quickly from a mains switch. Smart switching is usually only used for when you haven't got your own Casambi enabled control panels, so it's more for domestic applications. And in the Casambi new theme, there's new options in the nearby devices filter view. So you can see in the top right of the central image there's two new icons. You used to just have the option to sort by signal strength or alphabetically by network name. Now the left hand of those two symbols is a scanning option, and that continuously rotates, scanning the network, and you can tap on it to pause the scanning, so it'll just populate the list when it finds new devices if it's still running. And then the three dots open up the filter options, and you can select different filtering options, sorting by signal strength. In strongest signal or weakest signal, you just toggle the option there, or you can sort by network name or name of device, various options. And in addition to that, you can filter by unpaired devices, or a certain network, or networks that you've got access to, or whether the device is a luminaire, a switch, or a sensor. So there's various options, and you can combine the sort by and the filter by, so you can set two options. And something similar in the networks list in the Kasambi new theme. In the top right of the central image there, you've got two icons. The left one of those two icons is just to refresh the view that you can currently see, and the three dots, similarly to the nearby devices, is the filtering options, and you can sort by then network name or access rights, and you can filter by what's in closest range, for example, to your mobile device, or whether it's a classic network or an evolution network. And that's a summary of all the new features and functions that are coming in the December 2024 app release.